Come on, the room's empty.
Babe, where are we going?
It's a secret.
What are you talking about?
Shh. Are you ready to take this to the next level?
What do you mean?
You know. Hey. That was so rude. Hello, my honey bunches of oats.
Who are you guys?
Very conscious, silly.
Oh, so what do I do now? I'm so confused. I don't know if I should put it in her or not.
I mean, you have been with her for 2 years now. Don't you love her? Sex is something that all humans do, Thomas. There's no need to be nervous. Just watch a video before you have sex, because sex education is the main component where teens just like you learn how to have protected sex and the effects of if you do have an accident. If it is something you do want to do, it's because of emotion and your choice. But Thomas, I say choose now because it does look like she really wants it.
Okay, but Thomas, how old are you? 15. You are so young and you have your whole life ahead of you. The last thing on your mind should be sex. And when this act of having sexual intercourse before marriage is enacted outside of the boundaries of espousement, you are putting yourself in physical and spiritual hazard. Some of the many consequences of having premarital sex is contracting STDs or having unwanted pregnancy. Youth at this age lacks the cognitive and emotional maturity that is necessary to make wise and healthy decisions regarding their sexuality and are ill-prepared to cope with consequences of sexual activity. In order to maintain safe and have self-value, abstaining from sex is beneficial in every way.
Ooh, amen, daughter. My son preached, you preach too. Keep going, daughter, preach.
Marriage was only established to treat people as property. This is why the female gets the male's last name when married. So, are you saying that religion is the only thing that could dictate when you have sex?
Jenny, you say that these adolescents should pursue having sexual intercourse because they have freedom of will and freedom of choice. So you're condoning that they take the risk of having sex, encouraging them that it's understandable to participate in other unsafe activities like drug and alcohol consumption, and many more threatening things that follow. Because if teenagers see that this risk of having sex is normal and okay, even with knowing the consequences of STDs and unwanted pregnancies, what's to say they won't have the same mentality in other activities as well?
You say that persuading teens to have sex at an early age leads them to do other things like alcohol and drugs. But the thing is that alcohol and drugs are not something that come to human needs naturally. As seen in the Maslow's pyramid of needs, intimate relationships come third on the pyramid. That makes sex a need that all humans must experience. The topic of sex cannot be avoided by any age group due to sex being a thing that is talked about in many households as so frequently. But by hearing it being done the right way by using condoms, birth control, and keep checking on STIs helps teens consider and incorporate them in the way they do and think.
Ask me if I was saying if religion is the only thing that can dictate when to have sex, and my answer is no, as there are other factors that come into play. Not everyone is religious, and as we all know, some are in favor of having premarital sex, as this ritual marriage has been ruled an old-fashioned sacrament. But there are those who aren't religious that are against premarital sex. The point I'm trying to get through is that adolescents are not at the age to be needing to worry about sex.
What if you get into a marriage and you have sex and you feel like you're not sexually compatible with that person? Does that mean you have to stay in the relationship just because you had sex with them? If that's so, you know that can lead to unsafe and abusive relationships.
AIDS and HIVs undoubtedly are a product of habit, so don't you think events like the AIDS epidemic that happened around the 1960s and the rising percentage of abortions could have been avoided if men and women would just have stayed committed to not having vaginal intercourse?
Being exposed to things like AIDS and STDs is something likely in marriages, because even though you have the title of marriage, is just a title that does not physically prevent you from catching an STI. It makes it valid for an individual to have sex. STIs can exist when being married or not being married, because you're taking the action of having sex, and it puts you at a risk when taking part of sexual intercourse at any time. There are 1 million people with things like HIVs that are not married and married. There are solutions of preventing things like STIs, like condoms and monthly checks. People like in the AIDS epidemic are probably uneducated at the time. That makes them more likely to catch an STI.
Let me put on my glasses to hear you real quick. In no way am I saying that you should stay in an abusive relationship just because you have had sex. There have been many cases in which teenagers have been in abusive relationships and sometimes they are too scared to get out of them. Many teenagers have unrealistic perceptions about what love really is, and they have trouble accepting that someone who claims to love them would ever hurt them. This is mainly because their brain isn't even fully developed to be sure about their feelings, as studies show that teenagers' brain is fully developed at the age of 25. Their biology may expose that their bodies are ready for this, but their brain is not, which can lead to feelings like regret. Once you're an adult and are married, you will know when you're unsafe in your relationships. If teenagers have sex at their young age, their judgment will be clouded, and that will lead them into unsafe and abusive relationships. Excuse my language, but teenagers can barely wipe their ass. How will they know that this relationship will still be a relationship on the long run? Shouldn't they have their life set out and be at the right age to make these big and impactful decisions?
How do you plan on making teenagers abstain from sex due to teenagers having the mind of their own?
Jenny, how can you ensure that abortion will be available for these young girls when in many states they are setting abortion laws which will eliminate abortion as an option for those who want it?
The topic of abortion only comes from if a young girl gets pregnant. With the right amount of sex education, it will help many learn how to even prevent a pregnancy. From learning how to use a condom, and the girls get birth control to limit their chances of becoming pregnant. Because 98% of condom use is successful, which prevents many girls from even becoming pregnant. So Jasmine, with the right amount of sex ed, if you will prevent many from even thinking that they need to go through the painful process of abortion. However, in sex education, also educate girls what the early symptoms of a pregnancy, so it could be early for them to catch it and still be part of that 2-week stamp to be able to have an abortion due to them not being ready.
Stopping adolescents from going around and having sexual intercourse may be a hard task, but in order to make teenagers abstain from sex as they have a mind of their own, is installing fear and teaching them all the negative consequences of having sexual intercourse. I would want to teach them that although there are solutions like condoms and birth control, Planned Parenthood, an organization that goes for the idea that there are methods to keep yourself safe from any STDs or unwanted pregnancies, have stated that their methods are not 100% effective. The only guaranteed way of not contracting STDs and getting pregnant is by not having vaginal intercourse. Going back to what you said, yes, it's true that even in marriage, STDs and unwanted pregnancies are also possible, but that is why you get tested before, as it is illegal to have sex and not inform the person you are planning to have intercourse with.
Compatibility. Because what if you go into a marriage and you have sex and the compatibility is not there? You're only going to be in a relationship where you do not feel connected with your spouse. Being able to make the choice to be curious on a sexual desire that at the time it's led by taking the step of having sex, and being mentally set that sex is something that an individual wants to take part of. The choice cannot be dictated by one's own idea that sex is done when an individual is ready. But with the decision of having sex has to be known as being safe and not led by impulse and manipulation, but knowing that you are ready. Premarital sex should not be seen as wrong when it is just focused on only being right when you choose not having the title of being married as seen by the church, but seeing that it is an act that helps mature and develop when done right.
Yes, sex comes naturally and it's a part of life, but so is eating, but you still see nutritionists going and buying a book about keeping a diet or staying nutritious. One must always have self-control. Before you go and watch a video about sex, as Jennifer says here, respect your values and yourself and wait. If that girl really loves you, then she would have no problem waiting until you're ready. Premarital sex is a very taboo topic, and I understand that you may be curious to see what the fuss is all about. But if you learn about other things that occur during sex without experiencing it, you will not have to go out and do it yourself. We should all have enough confidence in ourselves and realize that we don't need to have sex in order for someone to make them love us. The older you become, the more you realize how unreasonable your actions were that were well considered reasonable. But once you are married and have your life set out and have a loving partner, you would have saved yourself and experienced something beautiful together. People should learn to understand one another and understand that sex is a big step in relationships. If it were not a big step, there would be no point to get married.
As someone who had teen sex, I'd say it was the wrong choice since I ended up pregnant.
Mama.
Okay, bye.